The first sound was not thunder. It was something older, something deeper, a cry that seemed to tear through the bones of the planet itself. The people of Duroth 9 had heard thunder before, but this was different. It was as if the heavens themselves had split open and were howling in agony. From the tallest hive spires to the buried slums that never saw daylight, everyone felt it. Mothers froze mid-sentence. Miners dropped their tools and pressed their heads against the rock as if trying to silence the sound inside their skulls. In that moment, silence became a wish no one could afford. Above them, the sky bled. A fissure tore through the clouds, not a storm, not even fire, but a swirling wound of colorless light. Ships of the Imperial fleet hovered like frightened ghosts, their sensors screaming warnings in languages long forgotten. And then, the light changed. It pulsed. It watched. For thousands of years, humanity had been told the Emperor protected them, that his light, though dim, burned eternal. But on that night, when the warp kissed the atmosphere of Duroth 9, the people realized the truth that no priest would dare whisper. The Emperor's light did not reach everywhere. There were places even his gaze had abandoned. A child named Eler stood at the balcony of his crumbling hab-block, clutching a rusted toy soldier. He stared up as a shape took form within the sky's wound, a figure vast and fluid, wearing no face yet having too many. Its whispers turned the air into liquid dread. The child tried to scream, but his voice betrayed him. The shadow's gaze met his, and his mind fractured into 1,000 screams that no one heard. Down below, the manufactorums continued their mechanical rhythms. Pistons rose and fell, gears shrieked, the hive's heart refused to stop beating. But the workers, they began to vanish. First one, then another. Their machines kept moving without them. No one dared to ask why. Weeks passed. The sun dimmed. The crops turned to dust. The air grew thicker, heavy with unseen voices that called out from the vents, the drains, the mirrors. Faith was rationed like food. The priests of the ecclesiarchy demanded obedience, shouting that suffering was salvation. Yet every sermon ended with more bodies nailed to the chapel walls. And somewhere, far beyond mortal eyes, the Imperium laughed. Warp storms consumed the outer colonies first. Fleets were swallowed whole, their distress signals looping endlessly through the void, whispers of men who screamed for help centuries after they'd died. Time fractured. Days bled into hours, then into years. The dead walked among the living, and no one dared to ask which side they were on. Then came the first of the god machines, titans of old, rusted by millennia, reawakened by the planet's madness. Their cannons fired into the void, not at enemies but at hallucinations. Cities burned under friendly fire. The soldiers said it was mercy. When the Inquisition finally arrived, it was not to save the world but to erase it. They brought silence, holy and absolute. Orbital bombardments turned continents into oceans of glass. Every name, every prayer, every scream was consumed in light. Yet, even as Duroth 9 burned, something survived. In the ashes, beneath a sky of black flame, something moved. It was not human. It was not demon. It was both, a reflection of everything the apocalypse had devoured. It spoke no words, yet its presence echoed through the ruins. The end is not destruction. The end is awakening. The Emperor's terror would later mark that night as the birth of a new terror, not a god, not a legion, but a consciousness of despair itself. The scholars who studied it called it apocalypse. Those who survived it had no words at all. Only the silence remained. The silence, and the faint, lingering echo of the sky that screamed. The world had died, but its bones refused to rest. Ash fell like snow upon the broken world of Duroth 9, coating everything in a pale, colorless shroud. The ruins still steamed from the orbital bombardments. Every step crunched over the char of human history, the skeletons of hab blocks, the twisted ribs of manufactorums, the blackened domes of shrines. Through this wasteland walked Inquisitor Lyrian Voss. Her armor, etched with the sigil of the Inquisition, bore the scars of 100 campaigns. The eye of the Emperor was carved into her pauldron, though even that sacred symbol seemed to weep soot. The vox in her ear crackled with static prayers from orbiting gunships. None of them knew why she had returned to this dead world. None dared to ask. Duroth 9 had been purged. No life was supposed to remain. Yet the warp never obeyed reason. It left traces, whispers, echoes, and those echoes were calling. As she moved through the skeletal streets, Lyrian's auspex pinged with faint readings, heat signatures where no heart should beat. The readings flickered, then vanished, as if the land itself was playing with her instruments. She passed what had once been a chapel of the ecclesiarchy. Its walls were blackened, but inside, the candles still burned, their flames inverted, glowing cold blue. She approached one. It whispered her name. The voice came not through her ears, but inside her skull. "You remember me, don't you, Lyrian?" She froze. The ashes shifted around her boots. Something unseen moved beneath the surface, like worms beneath the skin of the world. Her hand went to her bolt pistol, though she knew the weapon meant little here. She had heard of such hauntings, warp echoes from souls trapped in immaterium bleed. But this voice was not lost. It was curious. She turned slowly. The light bent wrong behind her, and there, among the pews, a figure sat. It was dressed in priestly robes, face hidden under a hood. Its hands, pale and skeletal, rested on a rusted lectern. "Identify yourself," Lyrian commanded, voice sharp. The figure lifted its head. Its face was gone, not burned, not scarred, simply absent. A hole, a void, where identity should have been. Yet she could feel it smiling. "You already did," it said, voice echoing like a choir of whispers. "You gave me my name when you burned this world." Lyrian's stomach tightened. She had ordered exterminatus upon Duroth 9 herself. Billions had perished under her command, for the Emperor, for the purity of mankind. Yet standing before this thing, she could not tell herself it had been righteous. "What are you?" "I am what remains when belief dies," it answered. "I am the memory of faith turned to ash. You called me Apocalypse." The name crawled into her mind like frostbite. Her hand trembled. "That's not possible." The warp manifestation was neutralized. "I saw it die in orbit." "You saw what you needed to see," the thing whispered, rising. "But you cannot destroy memory, Inquisitor. The warp remembers. The ashes remember. Even you remember." Suddenly, the inverted candles flared. The room distorted, the chapel stretched, cracked, and bled. The pews melted into ribcages. The altar screamed. Shadows crawled up the walls, whispering the names of the dead, syllables spilling like water. Lyrian stumbled backward. She activated her purity seals, reciting the canticle of binding. Her voice wavered as the ground split beneath her, and beneath the cracks, she saw faces. Human faces, staring up at her, mouths open in silent prayer. You can still save them, the void thing hissed. If you listen. I serve only the Emperor, she spat. The thing tilted its featureless head. Do you, Lyrian? Or do you serve the fear that he might not be watching? The question hit harder than any demon's strike. The Inquisitor's pulse thundered in her ears. She fired, a single bolt round, straight through the figure. The shell exploded in a burst of sanctified fire. The chapel vanished. She stood alone in the wasteland once more, heart hammering, gun still smoking. The ashes around her glowed faintly, then fell still. The Auspex was dead. The candles were gone. Yet the faint scent of burning incense lingered in the air. Her Vox came alive. Inquisitor Voss, this is Gunship Black Templar's wrath. We're detecting a psionic surge near your position. Are you secure? Lyrian hesitated. Negative. Something survived here. Mark this location for quarantine. No one enters until I say. Acknowledged. She cut the channel, eyes still scanning the horizon. The wind rose, carrying with it whispers that sounded like laughter. And in that laughter, she could hear words, fragments of the same haunting voice. The end is not destruction, the end is awakening. She turned toward the ruins of the hive's core. In the distance, blue fire licked the sky, faint, rhythmic, like the heartbeat of a dying god. Whatever had begun on Duroth 9 was not finished. And somewhere deep in her mind, buried beneath faith and fear, Inquisitor Lyrian Voss felt something she had not felt in years. Doubt. The storm above Duroth 9 had not moved in days. It hovered like a wound that refused to close, a ceiling of black cloud split by veins of unnatural light. Every pulse of that light echoed through the ruins like a dying heartbeat. Inquisitor Lyrian Voss stood before the entrance of what had once been Hive Narthus, her cloak dragging through the ash. The ruins loomed like a mausoleum carved for gods long dead. The colossal gate was half-sunken, the sigil of the Imperium scorched and distorted until it resembled something other. Something that looked back. Behind her, the wind carried the faint clatter of servitors and data probes. A squad of inquisitorial acolytes knelt around a portable shrine, murmuring the litany of isolation. Their prayers were hollow, recited from fear, not faith. Continue scanning, Voss ordered. Her voice was steady, though her hands betrayed the faint tremor she refused to acknowledge. The lead acolyte, a tech adept named Kale, adjusted his mechadendrites. My lady, the Auspex is showing psychic residue, strong warp signatures emanating from the sublevels. Energy patterns are inconsistent. It's as if reality itself is fluctuating. Then reality will have to hold, she replied. The gate screeched open under the weight of hydraulic claws. The stench that escaped was not decay, it was something older, rawer. A smell like burnt ozone and wet stone, the kind of scent one imagines clings to the walls of hell. Inside, the hive was a tomb. Darkness swallowed every sound. Their lamps pierced only fragments, shattered icons of the Emperor, bodies fossilized in ash, a cathedral of death sculpted by atomic fire. As they descended deeper, the whispering began again. Not from the walls this time, but from within the Vox. Lyrian. The name came through on every frequency, soft and reverent, as though the machines themselves had learned her. Kale froze. Did you? Keep moving, she snapped. They moved through corridors that defied geometry. Stairways led into themselves. Doorways opened onto ceilings. The air grew thick with static, each breath felt like inhaling broken glass. In the lower sanctum, they found the impossible. A single man stood amidst the ruins, alive. He was thin, wrapped in a tattered priest's robe. His eyes glowed faintly with warp burn, yet his face was strangely serene. Around him, the ground pulsed with faint blue light, forming a perfect circle of untouched purity in the chaos. "Identify yourself," Lyrian demanded. The men turned, smiling faintly. "I am the last voice of this world. The last prayer that was never heard." "Blasphemy," Kale hissed, raising his weapon. The men raised his hand gently, and Kale fell silent, his body frozen in mid-breath. His eyes rolled white. From his mouth came the echo of 1,000 other voices. Voss steadied her aim. "Release him." The priest's expression softened. "He is not held. He is listening." "To what?" "To the silence," he said. "Can't you hear it? The silence between prayers. The void that answers back." The chamber trembled. The walls bled rust. The glow at the priest's feet widened, revealing a pit beneath the metal flooring, not a hole, but an endless depth, shimmering with liquid shadow. "The Emperor does not dwell in this silence," Voss whispered. The priest nodded. "No. But something else does." Before she could respond, Kale screamed. His body convulsed, collapsing to the ground in spasms. The flesh around his throat split open, not from a wound but from emergence. From within, a black tendril of warp energy unfurled, shimmering, coiling, alive. Voss fired. The bolt round tore through the priest's chest, and yet he didn't fall. His wound glowed with light that bled outward instead of in. "You burn what you do not understand," he said softly, voice layered with others. "You serve a God who cannot hear you." "Enough!" Voss shouted. She slammed a purity seal against her breastplate and recited the canticle of the shielded soul. The warp light flickered. The pit screamed. Reality snapped back, for a moment. The priest was gone. Kale was gone. Only the circle remained, etched into the ground, pulsing faintly like a dying heart. Voss fell to one knee. Blood dripped from her nose. Her vox crackled with distant voices, her ship's crew, trying to reach her, their words distorted by psychic interference. She could only make out fragments. Power surge. Manifestation spreading. The sky is changing. She rose slowly, staring into the pit. The silence between the echoes had become unbearable. It pressed against her skull, whispering her name in the rhythm of her pulse. For a fleeting moment, she thought she saw something move deep below, something vast, something awake. Then, without warning, the silence spoke. Not in sound, but in memory. She saw herself, years ago, ordering the cleansing of Duroth 9. She saw the ships ignite the atmosphere, the cities burn, the oceans boil. But there, in the inferno, she saw figures standing untouched, faces turned upward, mouths open, as if welcoming the fire. And one of those faces was hers. She stumbled back, breath trembling. The warp had no boundaries here, past and present were threads of the same madness. The silence was not absence, it was consciousness. The end is not destruction, the memory whispered, it is awakening. And in that instant, Inquisitor Lyrian Voss understood that Duroth 9 had not been destroyed. It was still dreaming. Sleep was no longer a refuge. For 3 nights, Inquisitor Lyrian Voss drifted between consciousness and the whispering dark, her mind caught in a cycle of half-real memories. Each time her eyes closed, she felt Duroth 9 breathing beneath her, the world itself dreaming through her body. She had taken shelter in the remains of a command bunker, its walls etched with burned sigils and faint psionic wards. The air reeked of oil and incense, and the faint hum of her psychic barrier pulsed like a dying heart. Her armor lay beside her cot, scarred and smoking from warp exposure. On the third night, she dreamed again. In the dream, she was not herself. She was them, the billions who had burned. She felt their lungs fill with ash, their skin melt beneath orbital fire. She saw mothers clutching children as the sky fell apart. She felt their final prayers, whispered into the choking smoke, "Emperor, save us." And then she heard the reply, a voice that was not the Emperor's. It was vast and soft, like a storm speaking through silk. "He cannot hear you. But I can." The moment the voice spoke, the world inverted. Cities reassembled in impossible shapes, towers bent into arches that framed the sky. The dead walked, but not as corpses, as echoes, their bodies made of memory and dust. They looked at her, their eyes full of quiet accusation. She tried to wake, but her body would not move. From the center of the dreamscape rose a figure cloaked in blue flame, the same faceless thing she had seen in the chapel. But now its form shifted endlessly, wearing the visages of every soul that had died under her command. "Why do you run from what you created?" it asked. "I ended corruption," she said, voice trembling. "I purged heresy. I preserved mankind." The figure tilted its head. "You preserved silence. You built an empire of ash and called it faith." The ground split open beneath her feet, revealing a sea of broken statues, all of the Emperor, all defaced, their stone eyes weeping molten tears. Above, the stars flickered and went out, one by one, as if reality itself was losing faith. "I am not your enemy," Lyrian whispered. The thing stepped closer, its presence both infinite and intimate. "No. You are my dreamer. Through you, I remember what it means to be human." Her throat constricted. "What do you want?" "To finish what you began," it said. "You sought to cleanse this world. But you cannot burn away memory. Fire feeds on oxygen, and belief is the same. Even in death, the ashes breathe." The dream fractured. She woke with a scream, pistol in hand, sweat slick on her skin. The bunker's air was freezing. Her Vox was dead. Her acolytes, gone. Only Kale's ruined helmet remained, half buried in dust beside the entrance. Her heart pounded as she activated her auspex. The readings were wrong again, not heat, not life, but rhythm. The land was pulsing, in perfect sync with her heartbeat. She stepped outside. Duroth IX's horizon glowed faintly with blue veins, running like lightning through the crust. The clouds above no longer moved, they watched, shifting subtly as if following her. The air was thick with static whispers. "Dreamer," the wind hissed. She raised her pistol. "Show yourself." Instead, the world obeyed. Reality rippled outward. The ruins around her began to rearrange, stone bending like liquid. Shapes emerged from the haze, outlines of cities restored, towers reborn in impossible symmetry. It was Duroth 9, as it once had been, yet wrong. People walked the streets, the dead reborn as pale silhouettes, moving through the motions of a life they no longer had. A woman carried a child made of dust. A preacher shouted sermons to no one. An Imperial Guard squad marched without feet touching the ground. Lyrian stood at the center of this phantom world, heart racing. This isn't real. Reality is just the most stubborn dream, came the voice, the same soft tone that haunted her nights. The ground split. The faceless figure emerged once more, its form woven from the same ash that coated the world. Around it swirled the murmurs of billions, the memories of those she'd killed. This is the truth beneath the purge, it said. You burned the world, but you lit its soul. You made it remember. Lyrian's breath trembled. You're a warp construct. A lie made from guilt and madness. The being's shape flickered, resolving briefly into a mirror, her own reflection, eyes black and hollow. And yet, here you are, speaking to yourself. The city began to collapse inward. The silhouettes turned, one by one, to face her. They opened their mouths in unison, and from them came a single sound, her name. Lyrian. She dropped to her knees, clutching her temples as their voices pierced through her mind. The sound was not anger. It was longing, the ache of billions wanting to be remembered. She screamed back, "What do you want from me?" The figure reached toward her, its hand dissolving into mist. To wake up. Everything went silent. The phantom city disintegrated. The horizon burned white. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the real ruins of Duroth 9, alone, trembling, her pistol aimed at nothing. The auspex at her belt beeped once. Coordinates appeared on its cracked display, numbers written in blood-red text. They pointed toward the planet's equatorial vaults, deep beneath the crust. The message beneath the coordinates read only one word. Awakening. The descent into the equatorial vaults began in silence. Only the soft hum of the grav lift broke through the oppressive stillness as Inquisitor Lyrian Voss and her remaining servitor escort dropped into the heart of Duroth 9. Above them, the ash clouds thinned, revealing glimpses of fractured stars through the dust-choked sky. Below, darkness opened like a wound. The coordinates burned in her memory, transmitted by a world that should not have remembered. She had followed them because there was no other truth left to chase. Every answer had turned into an echo. Every prayer had turned into a scream. The lift shuddered to a stop. Before her stretched a colossal chamber, a cavern carved not by human hands but by something older. The walls pulsed faintly with blue veins of energy, the same hue that had haunted her dreams. Columns of petrified bone rose from the ground, reaching toward a ceiling lost in shadow. At the chamber's center stood a gate. It was vast, circular, and alive, its surface shifting like liquid metal, engraved with sigils that predated the Imperium itself. It hummed softly, resonating with the same pulse that echoed in her veins. Lyrian approached slowly. Her auspex flickered and died. The servitors behind her twitched as static bled from their augmetics. "This is the heart," she murmured. "The planet's soul." She touched the gate. The surface rippled beneath her glove, and in that instant, the world changed. Light poured from the walls, not illumination, but memory. Visions cascaded before her eyes, cities before the purge, oceans alive with fire, the sky screaming as the warp bled through the atmosphere. She saw herself again, standing on the command deck of her ship, giving the order that erased a world. And behind her, unseen until now, something else had been watching. A shadow in the reflection of her memory. It stepped forward. "I told you we would meet here," the voice said. It was the same, soft, infinite, cruelly tender. Lyrian turned, weapon raised. The faceless being stood beside the gate, its form more defined now, its edges sharper, like reality had finally decided to believe in it. "What are you?" she demanded. "A demon." A god. A hallucination. I am none of those, it replied. I am the echo of your faith. I was born from your fire, your fear, your mercy. When you burned this world, you gave it voice. And now, I am that voice. She clenched her jaw. You're the corruption that destroyed Duroth 9. It smiled without lips. You destroyed Duroth 9. I merely survived it. The air thickened. Her ears rang with the sound of millions whispering at once, not words, but the rhythm of thought. Around her, the bones of the chamber began to move, grinding together like the gears of a colossal heart. What is this vault? She asked, shouting over the noise. The Emperor's lie, it said. A prison for what he could not destroy. The dream before his light reached the stars. The gate behind the creature began to open, light spilling through the cracks. Inside was not another chamber, but an ocean, endless, black, and alive with motion. Shapes writhed beneath the surface, silhouettes of titans and angels twisted into horrors of unmaking. You cannot open that, Voss hissed. You'll damn us all. The being stepped closer. You already did. I'm just finishing your prayer. Lyrian drew her bolt pistol and fired, 3 blessed rounds, each carrying the Emperor's sigil. The shots tore through the figure's chest, but instead of falling, it disintegrated into ash, then reformed, stronger. Violence is a kind of worship, it said. And you worship well. Voss stumbled back, slamming a purity seal against the gate, reciting the litany of sanctification. Her voice cracked as the chamber shook. Light flared brighter, threatening to consume everything. The being reached toward her. Its hand touched her forehead, and the world stopped. For a heartbeat, she saw everything. The warp. The stars. The Imperium. All of it, fragile, trembling, built on the same lie, that faith was stronger than fear. And then she saw the truth beneath it, a universe that wanted to wake up. You call it the apocalypse, the voice whispered, echoing inside her skull. But the apocalypse is not an end. It is a beginning. The universe is remembering itself, through you. The chamber cracked. The servitors exploded, torn apart by psychic overload. The gate roared open, spilling light that devoured shadow and form alike. Voss screamed and fired blindly, backing away, until the gate collapsed in on itself, sealing with a thunderous crash that shook the earth. Silence. When the dust settled, the chamber was still again. The being was gone. The gate sealed. Only the faint hum of reality returning remained. Lyrian collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Her armor was cracked. Her skin bled light. Somewhere above, the storm broke. The sky wept blue fire. And deep inside her mind, a whisper lingered. You cannot stop awakening. You are part of it now. The sky was falling again. Not in fire this time, but in light. Cold, blue, silent light that poured from the clouds in slow, deliberate ribbons, weaving across the surface of Duroth 9 like veins in a corpse. Every pulse of that light was a heartbeat, every heartbeat a word, and every word spoke her name. Lyrian. She stood on the edge of the vault, armor scorched, lungs burning from psychic residue. The wind carried the scent of ozone and death. Above her, the storm twisted into an eye, vast and slow, peering down with the weight of something that was not a god, but remembered what being one felt like. For the first time since her initiation into the Inquisition, Inquisitor Lyrian Voss was afraid not of dying, but of remembering. Her ship, the Wrath of Dawn, orbited far above. Its crew had lost contact hours ago, their last transmission fractured by static, warp surge detected, planetary core destabilizing, then silence. No return. No hope. She activated her Vox. Command, this is Voss. Do you copy? Nothing. Only whispers answered. She looked back toward the vault. The gate remained sealed, though faint cracks of light now bled through the sigils. Whatever she had stopped, it wasn't finished. The wind shifted, and she heard movement, soft, measured steps behind her. Lyrian drew her pistol, turning fast. A figure stood in the ashes. It wore a tattered Imperial officer's coat, its insignia burned beyond recognition. The man's face was familiar, a ghost she had buried long ago. "Commissar Darnell," she whispered. He smiled faintly, though his eyes were hollow. "Still giving orders to the dead, Lyrian?" "You died on Calther Prime," she said. "Did I?" His voice was gentle, but wrong, each word carrying a faint echo, as if spoken by more than one mouth. "Or did you just stop remembering me?" She lowered her weapon slightly. "You're not real." "Reality," he said, taking a step closer, "is a fragile luxury we invent to protect ourselves from the truth. You've seen the truth now, haven't you?" He gestured toward the vault. "You opened the wound, and the world is bleeding through it." Lyrian took a step back. "You're a hallucination. Warp interference." "Maybe," he said softly. "But tell me, Lyrian, if I'm not real, why are you trembling?" The light from the vault flared, illuminating his face. For a fleeting second, she saw what he truly was, a shell of human form, filled with something vast and patient. Not demon, not spirit, memory incarnate. He extended a hand. "The Emperor is not watching. But something else is. Come see it with me." She fired. The bolt round exploded through his chest, scattering his form into dust and light. His voice lingered as it dissolved. "You cannot kill what remembers." The ash swirled away, leaving only silence, and the echo of her own breathing. Lyrian staggered forward, clutching the rosarius hanging from her neck. Its glow flickered. For years, it had been her symbol of devotion, her proof that even in darkness, his light endured. But now, it pulsed in rhythm with the vault. The same rhythm. She fell to her knees. "Emperor, guide me," she whispered. The rosarius dimmed, then shattered. The pieces floated upward, drawn toward the vault's light. And in that moment, the sky screamed again, the same sound that had once ended a world. The ground split open. Pillars of fire rose in silence, bending like tendrils toward the heavens. Across the horizon, the ruins of Duroth 9 began to move, towers rebuilding themselves, broken manufactorums reassembling into grotesque mockeries of their former glory. And the people returned. Not flesh, not spirit, echoes. Billions of silhouettes filled the landscape, each one a fragment of those who had died in the purge. Their eyes glowed faintly, unified in one endless stare. They did not move toward her, they simply existed, humming with the same resonance as the vault. The air thickened with psychic pressure. Her ears bled. Her heartbeat quickened. Then, silence. The horizon cracked. A sphere of light rose from the world's core, piercing through the storm. It grew until it filled the sky, burning brighter than any sun. But its light was fractured, splitting into shards, each containing a face, a voice, a life. It wasn't a sun. It was memory trying to become a god. And it was waking. The light spoke through every voice at once, human, alien, divine, damned. We remember the fire. We remember the silence. We remember you. Lyrian fell to her knees. What are you becoming? The fractured sun pulsed, each rhythm matching her breath. What you made us. What you burned into being. She screamed against the wind. I destroyed you to protect mankind. Then why are you still here? It whispered. The question hit like a blade. She realized, with hollow terror, that she had never left Duroth 9, not truly. Her ship, her faith, her authority, all had been consumed in the first purge. She was a survivor only because the world had chosen her to be. She looked at her hands. The veins beneath her skin glowed blue. The planet's light, its heartbeat, was inside her now. No, she muttered, trembling. No, this isn't real. It is, said another voice, closer, inside her mind. The faceless being appeared again, now radiant, its body threaded with strands of the fractured sun. You are the bridge, Lyrian. The Emperor's fire burned the body of this world, but your guilt preserved its soul. Through you, it breathes again. She backed away, pistol raised, though her arm shook violently. I will not let you take me. The figure tilted its head. You misunderstand. You already belong to us. You've always belonged. The fractured sun began to descend, its light folding into the vault, merging with the planet's pulse. The figures in the ash raised their heads, whispering in unison. Awakening. Her mind split open. She saw everything, the warp folding over itself, reality unraveling like threads. The Imperium was not eternal, it was a dream in the mind of something older, something now stirring. In that instant, Lyrian understood the prophecy of apocalypse, not destruction, but remembrance. The end was not the void. The end was the return of everything mankind had tried to forget. The sky burned white. She screamed, and the sound echoed across eternity. When her senses returned, she was standing where the vault had been. The gate was gone. The light had vanished. Only the fractured sun remained above, now dim and broken, pieces scattered across the stars like dying embers. Duroth 9 was silent once more. But in that silence, something lived. The wind whispered her name, not in accusation but in prayer. And when she looked into her reflection, in a shard of her shattered rosarius, she no longer saw her own eyes. They glowed blue. The color of the planet. The color of memory. The color of awakening. In the void between stars, faith could rot like flesh. For millennia, the Imperium of men had survived on belief, in the Emperor's divinity, in the sanctity of his light, in the absolute certainty that no horror, no heresy, no alien god could ever eclipse his will. But faith was a fragile weapon, and now, it trembled. On the bridge of the battleship Vigilant Sorrow, orbiting the outer rim of the segmentum Pacificus, the astropaths screamed in silence. One by one, their eyes burst under invisible pressure, their minds collapsing inward like dying stars. A psychic pulse had rolled through the warp. No coordinates. No pattern. Just a wave of remembrance. The choir mistress staggered to her knees, blood trailing from her ears. Her lips moved soundlessly, then formed the words that would soon echo across every vox channel in the sector. Duroth remembers. Captain Talon Vor didn't understand. None of them did. Duroth 9 had been purged centuries ago, scorched to stone by the Inquisition itself. It was a dead world, erased from the imperial registers, sealed behind astropathic quarantine. But now, its name was being spoken again, not by humans, but by the warp itself. Inquisitor Voss awoke in the ruins of her old command post. The air was heavy with ash and quiet. The fractured sun still hung above, smaller now, but watching. She rose unsteadily, her armor cracked, her hair streaked with gray. Days, perhaps weeks, had passed, though time on Duroth 9 no longer obeyed human logic. She stumbled toward the remains of her comms array. The equipment sparked faintly, miraculously alive. Static hissed. Then, a voice. Voss. Inquisitor Lyrian Voss. This is Ordo Malleus Command aboard Vigilant Sorrow. Confirm your status. Her throat tightened. It was impossible. She had heard the ship's death screams before. But she pressed the transmitter anyway. This is Voss. I am alive. Duroth 9 is, she hesitated, glancing at the burning horizon. Active. A pause. Then the voice returned, clipped, disciplined. We received a warp surge correlated to your sector. The Astronomicon dimmed for 8 seconds. Explain. 8 seconds. In galactic terms, that was eternity. I sealed the vault, she said slowly, but something woke. The planet remembers itself. The souls of the purged. They're becoming something unified. Silence. Then a low, incredulous breath. Inquisitor, are you claiming resurrection? That's heresy under Canon Lex Prime. She laughed softly, not in amusement, but despair. Call it what you want. Heresy, miracle, madness. It doesn't matter. The dead are speaking, and the warp is listening. Far above, the Vigilant Sorrow's strategium glowed with red sigils. The high-ranking inquisitors, priests, and Mechanicus adepts crowded around the hololithic display of Duroth 9. The planet shimmered like a wound, threads of blue and gold light pulsating through its crust. The Muggos Prime adjusted his data filaments, his voice a metallic hum. Energy readings are consistent with warp rift activity, but the frequency is stable. It should be impossible. One of the Grey Knights present, a towering figure of ceramite and silence, turned his gaze toward the display. The warp does not seek stability. This is design. The chamber fell silent. What design? Asked Lord Inquisitor Halbrecht. The knight's visor flickered faintly. The design of remembrance. A pattern older than chaos itself. In the underhive of Necromunda, a preacher stood before his congregation, miners, mutants, scavengers, his voice trembling as he held a glowing shard of blue crystal. This came from the stars, he said. It fell from the void 3 nights ago. It whispers of forgiveness. The crowd murmured. Some wept. Others laughed. The preacher lifted the shard higher. They said the Emperor is silent, but this light, this memory, speaks. Before he could continue, a detachment of Arbites burst through the chapel doors. Bolter fire tore through the worshippers. The shard shattered, bleeding light instead of dust. And as it touched the ground, every corpse on the floor opened its eyes. They did not move. They simply stared upward, whispering one word. Remember. On Terra, the High Lords convened in shadow. No banners, no ceremonies, only whispers of blasphemy and dread. A single report had reached them, heavily redacted, but undeniable. Duroth 9, long considered dead, now emitted a light visible from nearby systems. The ecclesiarch stood first. If this is resurrection, it must be sanctioned as a miracle of the Emperor's will. The Grand Master of the Inquisition slammed his fist upon the table. Blasphemy! You would canonize a world burned by his decree. That planet was purged for a reason. If it breathes again, it's because something beneath it survived our fire. The Adeptus Astra Telepathica representative whispered, "We sense thoughts, my lords. Not random. Intentional. They are forming structure within the warp, coordinates, words, prayers." "Prayers?" the ecclesiarch asked. "Yes," the telepath said softly. "But not to the Emperor." Back on Duroth 9, Lyrian wandered the canyons of glass and bone. Every shadow seemed alive. Every echo carried her own voice, twisted, multiplied, ancient. She found remnants of her team, or what passed for them now. Sergeant Karas knelt in the dust, head bowed, chanting the Emperor's name under his breath. His flesh was burned away, but his armor moved, guided by invisible hands. "Karas," she whispered. His helm turned. Beneath it, his eyes glowed the same blue as the fractured sun. "He is with us," he said calmly. "All are with us now." She raised her weapon. "Stand down, Sergeant." He smiled faintly. "Why? You're one of us." And before she could respond, his body dissolved into dust, carried upward by the wind. The dust gathered with others, millions of them, forming patterns across the sky. For a brief, terrible moment, the constellations themselves changed, rearranging into the shape of a vast human face. It looked nothing like the Emperor. And yet, it smiled. The vigilant Sorrow's sensors went dark. From orbit, the crew watched as the planet's crust shifted, reshaping itself into glyphs visible even from space. The Mechanicus adepts screamed binary prayers. "The planet is writing," one of them shouted. Across the hololith, the symbols aligned. Translated, they formed a single phrase in High Gothic. "The Emperor remembers us." Across the Imperium, chaos spread, not from the warp, but from faith itself. Worlds began reporting visions of blue fire in the sky, voices in the void whispering forgotten names. Entire shrines reactivated, their statues bleeding light instead of oil. Priests claimed the Emperor was returning. Inquisitors declared it mass possession. And through it all, the Astronomicon flickered, its great psychic beacon dimming, then reigniting with pulses matching the rhythm of Duroth IX's fractured sun. The Imperium was no longer the center of faith. The dead world was. Lyrian stood on the planet's highest ridge, watching the heavens burn with symbols no human eye was meant to see. She spoke softly to the empty air. "You've infected them all, haven't you?" A voice answered, calm, infinite. "We are not infection. We are memory. We are what remains when belief forgets itself." "Then what am I?" she whispered. The voice smiled through her mind. "You are the first prayer that answered itself." She closed her eyes, feeling the pulse of the fractured sun within her veins. The rhythm was her heartbeat now. When she opened them again, her irises blazed with blue fire. She turned her gaze to the void, toward Terra, toward the heart of mankind's empire. And she whispered one word, soft yet vast enough to echo through the warp. "Awaken." The pulse that followed shattered every astropathic channel across the segmentum. On Terra, the golden throne flickered once. Just once, but enough for every tech priest and saint to feel it. Some said it was a malfunction. Others said it was the Emperor stirring. But those who had seen Duroth 9 knew the truth. It was not the Emperor who had awakened. It was his shadow. And it was remembering everything he had ever burned. Terra trembled. For 10,000 years, the throne world had endured wars, plagues, rebellions, but never this. Never silence. The Astronomican's beam, the psychic pulse that guided all imperial ships, had gone dark. Every astropath in the palace screamed at once, their souls melting into the void. And for one impossible second, the galaxy stood still. In the Golden Palace, the Adeptus Custodes stood guard before the throne. The Emperor's husk sat motionless as always, skin like gold dust, eyes blind to eternity. Only the mechanical hiss of the life-sustaining engines filled the sanctum. Then he exhaled. A single breath. Dry, rasping, but unmistakably alive. The custodes knelt, uncertain whether to pray or flee. Across the Imperium, every shrine, every chapel, every cathedral of men burned with blue fire. The same light that had risen from Duroth 9. And with it came a whisper, spreading faster than light. He remembers us. On Duroth 9, Lyrian stood beneath a sky split between dawn and shadow. The fractured sun pulsed overhead, dimming with every beat. Around her, the echoing souls, billions of them, began to fade into dust. "It's ending," she murmured. A voice answered within her mind, calm, infinite, mournful. "No. It's beginning." The light of the fractured sun fell upon her like a crown. Her armor disintegrated, revealing skin marked with the same sigils carved across the planet's crust. She looked upward, eyes glowing bright as stars. "You wanted remembrance," she whispered. "You've become it." The voice smiled. "We are not gods. We are what your emperor tried to forget. We are the half of him that dreamed." The wind rose. The ground quaked. From the depths of the world, a column of light erupted, tearing through the clouds, through the void, through the warp itself. It struck Terra. In the palace, alarms blared. The throne's power conduits overloaded, flooding the sanctum with blinding radiance. Tech priests screamed binary litanies as their flesh peeled away under the strain. And through that storm of divine fire, the Emperor's eyes opened. They were not gold. They were blue. Across the Imperium, saints fell to their knees, prophets tore out their tongues, and psychers burned alive from the sudden flood of remembrance. The Emperor did not speak, not with words. He simply remembered, and all creation remembered with him. Every sin, every purge, every death committed in his name replayed in perfect, unbearable clarity. The Imperium saw itself, not as humanity's savior, but as its ghost. Lyrian fell to the ground, weeping. "What have I done?" "You freed him," the voice said gently. "You reminded the forgotten god that he was once a man." She looked up, choking on tears. "Will he forgive us?" The voice hesitated. "Forgiveness is a word for those who forget." "He remembers." The fractured sun above her cracked one final time, and exploded silently, scattering its light across the galaxy. Every shard became a star, every star a witness. In that light, Lyrian saw visions, worlds awakening, faith unraveling, humanity standing naked before the weight of its own history. And through it all, she felt him watching. Not as the emperor of mankind, but as something older, something vast, something awake. On Terra, the throne dimmed. The Emperor's form stilled once more, but his eyes remained open, gazing beyond the material realm. The custodes knelt in silence. They did not pray. They simply waited. Above them, the Astronomicon reignited, but its light was not the familiar gold. It was blue, cold and beautiful, pulsing in rhythm with a single heartbeat that echoed across the stars. The new light spread through the warp, erasing demons, silencing chaos, rewriting reality itself into something neither divine nor mortal. It was not salvation. It was remembrance. On Duroth 9, only silence remained. The planet's crust cooled, its ruins now still monuments to what once was. In the dust, a single figure walked, Lyrian Voss, or what remained of her. Her flesh shimmered faintly with starlight, her voice quiet, distant. She touched the ground and whispered, "He remembers." The world answered in kind, echoing softly through the void. So do we. In that moment, every human soul in the galaxy felt it, not fear, not despair, but the weight of being known. The apocalypse had not ended the Imperium. It had revealed it. And from that revelation, something new was rising. A faith without blindness. A God without silence. A humanity that remembered everything it had destroyed. The dawn that should not be had come. And it was beautiful. There were no screams when the world ended, only silence. The last city of Duroth 9 burned without sound, its towers collapsing into oceans of ash as if the air itself refused to carry the horror. Above it, the sun turned blue and began to fracture, each shard pulsing like a dying heartbeat. From orbit, the Inquisition watched the planet's execution. Exterminatus orders were carried out with precision, virus bombs first, firestorms second, orbital lances last. Every life was erased, every record sealed. And yet, something lingered. In the darkness that followed, the dead began to dream. Their memories clung to the ruins, whispering through the dust, weaving themselves into the bones of the world. Faith had burned, but remembrance could not die. Centuries later, when the ashes settled and the Imperium forgot Duroth 9, a pulse of light flickered once again beneath its crust. Not fire. Not life. Memory. The warp stirred. The Emperor's light dimmed. Somewhere in the void, the dead remembered the living, and the galaxy shuddered in its sleep. That was how the apocalypse began. Not with the fall of worlds, but with the return of one that refused to stay dead.